If I post this video, then that means it worked. I've gotten some questions about how I dry my clay out when I am reclaiming my clay. So I put it on plaster beds. Once I have a bunch of clay that's ready to be reclaimed, I'll take a huge scoop out from my big bucket and then I will put it right on top of here. I'll wait about a day and then I'll wedge that up into clay that I can use for all my projects. Without this, you can use a couple other different methods. I've seen like a pillowcase. Actually I probably have only seen the pillowcase method and the plaster bat method. So if you know other things, try it out, but I think this is one of the easiest ones. What you're gonna need to be able to do this, you need like some sort of plastic container. You want it where it moves a little bit, so you don't want anything that's too rigid. You need some plaster and you need some water and a scale I use just to help myself. I won't lie, there's probably directions on the plaster when you buy it. I always just look online. I'll put the graph online that I use for knowing the ratio of water to plaster. So it's fairly simple. You just need to wait a little bit of time and then you'll have something ready to use. So I have 2 gallons of water in here, which means I need 22 pounds of plaster, which sounds actually insane. I've done this a bunch of times and I've used that chart for other things. This for sure was probably half that amount, but it also was a little thin and I want them just to be a little bit thicker. I'm just gonna trust the graph, and if I post this video, then that means it worked. Let's go for it. How am I gonna do this without being super messy? I'm gonna put on my mask just to be safe. Okay, I should have cleaned this container a little bit better, but it's gonna work fine. You just need some type of oil or like an agent that's gonna help release the plaster from whatever container you're using. I just use Pam spray oil, that works easy. You don't need a ton. So I've got my water, and then this should be the same exact 22 pounds that I need to put in here, which again still seems crazy. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start folding.
Oh, next step is to fold in the cheese.
What does that mean? He folds it in.
This in slowly into the water. I'm just gonna use my hands and I'm gonna mix it. If you want to use a tool, you can. It's just really gonna get sticky. Use whatever you think is gonna work best for you. It does work pretty fast, so you can't work too slow. Okay. I'm just gonna try my best to get everything broken up and mixed in. So you can feel around in here actually, and you can feel some really big clumps. So you just want to break those clumps up. So now I'm going to slowly put it into here. You don't want to drop it in too fast, otherwise it does create some air pockets. So like that's probably too fast. This shit's heavy. I'm just not doing very well at letting this go in gracefully. I think it should be fine though. You can tell it's thicker at the bottom there though. Okay, now what you want to do is slowly shake the thing back and forth or rock it back and forth to try to get all these air bubbles out. So you'll notice like slowly bubbles will start coming to the surface. When you stop seeing a bunch of them, then you can stop. Alright, now we let it sit for a little bit of time. I think this is gonna work, but I do get a little nervous. There shouldn't be a tiny line of water at the top. I might have just put a little more water than plaster for what I needed. Other than that, usually you let it sit for about 15 to 20 minutes. It works pretty fast. Definitely check your ratios and make sure you're doing that right. It's been about 15 or 20 minutes so far. You can tell it's working. I can feel the heat coming from it as well. So like I said, there was like a thin layer of water up top, which usually doesn't happen for me unless I didn't put enough plaster in. So what I'm doing, it's quite wasteful unfortunately, but I'm just doing that to suck up the water. It finally should dry since there's no water that's sitting above it. It's been about an hour. The sides and everything are definitely warm still. But I try to always get this out of the container before it dries too much, because then it gets really tricky to get it out of the container. I have broken it once by going a little too early. I think it should be fine, so let's try it. Oh my gosh, that was heavy. Okay. Okay, to start, I know I need to clean, but anyway, the top turned out really well. I was very nervous that this wasn't gonna look very good. So I'm very happy. The bottom definitely is not great. What I usually do really quickly before this dries, I let it dry for 1 week. Like, you want to make sure this is dry before you use it. But anyway, I'll take something like a hard edged something and I'll trim down the corners just a little bit, because otherwise this plaster starts chipping everywhere, and you don't want that, because if this plaster goes into your clay, then your clay might explode in the kiln. So, not great. So when it's all finished and dried, it'll look like this, almost the exact same, and then you can start using it to dry your clay on top of it. So since it's a porous material, it's going to help you dry your clay just a bit more evenly.